college football fans, welcome in, welcome back to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, where I examine, discuss, celebrate, and honor all things college football across the entire college football landscape, but with a very special emphasis on our beloved black and gold squads of the Missouri Tigers and the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's great to be back with you. This is my week 1 review and recap episode. Wow, what a great opening week we had of college football. Welcome back. I'm your host, Blair Parks. It's great to be back with you guys. Before I say anything, please, if you like what you see, you like what you hear, please like, share, subscribe, rate, comment, share, all of the above. This is a safe haven for all college football fans. Whether you cheer for the black and golds or not, all are welcome here, and I always encourage any sort of involvement from you, the black and gold family, and all of you college football fanatics out there. But wow, what a week 1 we had. As I said, we are just coming off of a 5-day buffet, a smorgasbord, a plethora of college football games. We had 5 straight days from Thursday to Monday of college football, and that only wants us leaving and wanting more. That's what I want anyway. So week 1 has come and gone. It is now in the rearview mirror. And wow, after an 8-month layoff of just waiting, it was so worth it what we witnessed during week 1. The greatest news, other than college football being back in full swing, is both of our black and gold squads were able to secure victories. Both of them are 1-0. Missouri looked solid in a 52-24 victory at home in Como over Louisiana Tech. And our Iowa Hawkeyes, well, they did get the victory 7-3. That's right. This is 7-3 here in 2022. Not a score from the 1920s or 1930s, but a victory is a victory, and I'm definitely going to talk a lot more about these two games a little bit later in this episode. So, a win's a win, as my good friend Tim Goodson once told me about football after week 1. Hey, half of Division 1 is undefeated, and the other half has a loss, so you absolutely want to try to remain undefeated for as long as you can. Oh, wow. Man, what games we witnessed. I mean, before I dive into this episode, just the instant classics that we witnessed galore across the entire country. I mean, just starting Thursday night. I mean, these games lived up to everything, and they left a lasting impression with us, whether you're a fan of these teams or not. It started in Pittsburgh, PA, the backyard brawl, a old Big East rivalry, West Virginia at Pitt. It came down to it. What a game that was Thursday night. And also on Thursday night from West Lafayette, Indiana, Big Ten opener between Penn State and Purdue. Another game that came down to the last minute of play. Saturday, Gainesville, Florida. Billy Napier making his coaching debut for the Gators. They knocked off number 7 Utah in the Swamp. I mean, just instant classics left and right. You really couldn't keep up. And also there were some instant classics from the most unlikely of places. Going back to Friday night in Norfolk, Virginia, Virginia Tech traveled to Old Dominion. What a game that was, and what a big victory for Old Dominion. Have a little bit more on this game a little bit later in the episode as well. Boone, North Carolina on Saturday. North Carolina at Appalachian State. What a game. What a track meet that turned out to be. What a classic game. Also in the great state of North Carolina, from Greenville, North Carolina, NC State traveled to East Carolina to take on the Pirates in another instant classic on Saturday. And last but not least, from Houston, Texas, down in the Alamo Bowl, highly ranked Houston traveled to UTSA in San Antonio. And what another instant classic that was. I mean, these games were all legit. I mean, I wish I had a chance to watch more of them because I was in a wedding Saturday afternoon into the evening. I just wish I would have been able to watch more of them real time, but it's all good. No regrets whatsoever. I mean, these games reminded us about all that's good and great about college football. These games and moments will be passed on from parents to sons and daughters who watched it, from older siblings to younger siblings. What we witnessed really was history. All right, these are historic moments. That is why I love this sport so much. I think I'll let Belloc from Raiders of the Lost Ark, he could probably say it better than I could. Indiana, we are merely passing through history. This, college football, this is history. And that's exactly what he said, other than the college football words I added there. This sport, it is such a part of us. I mean, this is why we love it. The pageantry, the tradition, everything, the camaraderie of this game. It is absolutely in our blood, in our veins, flowing through our bodies. And college football is absolutely a part of our souls. Now, for all of you fans who were on the losing end this weekend, I know losses are never welcomed, especially in week one, but I feel for you. Just like Ursula once sang, "You poor unfortunate souls." But remember, week two is a new week. Let's start over again. Let's turn those frowns upside down. But anyway, what a good episode I have lined up for you today. Kind of my premiere, my debut of a few new segments. I've kind of revamped the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Every week during my preview and recap episodes, such as this one, I'm going to start off with my buy, sell, or hold segment. Then I'm going to move into the good, the bad, and the ugly, followed then by my team power rankings to see, based on what I saw, my top 10 plus 2 teams throughout the nation. And then finally, we'll wrap up with the 3 cheers segment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So, buy, sell, or hold. Now, how this is going to work, I've got a 6-pack of hot takes, okay, based on what I saw Saturday, what I read, what everything I heard, what I saw. So I have a 6-pack of hot takes, and I'm going to tell you what the statement is and tell you whether I buy, sell, or hold that statement. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this started. Let's go ahead and get the bell rung so we can get this started for buy, sell, or hold. The trade is open. Trading's open, trading's open. All right. So my first hot take coming your way right now. Following week 1, after an most impressive, thank you, Darth Vader, victory over Oregon, 49-3. Georgia is, as of right now, the best team in the nation. I am absolutely going to buy that statement because, wow, if you thought they were good last year, they could maybe even be better this season. Now, it's early to tell, but there's no way in hell I believe that Georgia is not the best team right now in the nation. I mean, they absolutely dismantled, dismembered Oregon, who came into the game ranked number 11, and they find themselves here on Tuesday not even ranked. Wow, what a quick downfall for the Ducks. So I am absolutely buying that statement. Georgia right now looks like the team to beat, like they haven't even missed a single step from last year's national championship team. So number 2, my second hot take coming your way. Following their upset of number 7 Utah at home in Gainesville in the Swamp, Florida is the 3rd best team in the SEC. I'm going to hold that statement for now because this Florida team, I'm not really quite sure just how good they are. I mean, that was a very impressive showing. I thought Utah would go in there and ruin Coach Billy Napier's coaching debut, that it would not be a good game for Florida. I thought Utah would be able to physically handle those guys, but they did pull off that 3-point upset victory. So I just don't know if they're the 3rd best team. We all know that Georgia and Alabama are the 2 best teams in the SEC, but I just don't know. They haven't shown me enough yet, has Florida. I still would like to see a little bit more from them, but also from Tennessee and Mississippi State, who I think is going to be a very, very good team, and even Texas A&M. All right, so I'm not really ready to buy that statement or sell it. Let's just hold that statement right now about Florida being the 3rd best team in the SEC. Next hot take coming your way, number 3. After the lackluster showing by the Pac-12 upper echelon, and Oregon, I already mentioned, got absolutely walloped by Georgia, and Utah losing. Those were the 2 highest ranked teams from the Conference of Champions. So after a lackluster showing by the Pac-12, the Conference of Champions will be yet again left out of the college football playoff field. I'm going to sell that. It's still too early. Now, those 2 losses by the upper echelon teams from the Pac-12, that hurts. The Oregon loss and Utah loss definitely hurts their chances of getting back into the college football playoff field. But Utah is still really in a good position. I mean, they're still ranked. They fell down to number 13 this week after that loss in the Swamp. But if they were to lose one more game, even if they did go on to win the Pac-12, that may not be enough for them. Now, if it's a good loss, if there ever is such a thing, if it's a good loss, let's say to a quality opponent, and then they win 10 out of their next 11, win the Pac-12 conference title, and depending on what happens in front of them, I still could see Utah getting in. Oregon, I think, is going to have a much more difficult path to get there now. But remember, USC is still there. They absolutely walloped Rice inside the Coliseum as expected with that new look, up-tempo, new vamped offense under Coach Lincoln Riley. So I'm going to sell that. I still think the Pac-12 is alive, not quite on life support for getting into the college football playoff field, but they're getting close. So, take number 4. After allowing only 72 total yards in the second half to Notre Dame, if Jim Knowles, who was the big-time defensive coordinator hire in the offseason by Ohio State, if Jim Knowles has fixed the issues with the Buckeyes defense, then they should be favored to win the national title. I'm going to buy this statement. We all know that, well, most of us would say that Ohio State is the best offense in the nation, all right? Now, the way they won Saturday night, they won a little bit ugly, but I think if you're an Ohio State fan, you actually should be a little bit excited. You took and you should have taken a lot of good things away from this game. Hardly ever does Ohio State have to change their plan of attack, their game plan, but that's exactly what Coach Ryan Day did do. And Ryan Day has caught a lot of flack in the past for being sometimes just a little bit too pass happy. So at halftime, I think he put it in the hands of his running backs to say, we're going to win Big Ten style, and they were able to do it. Now, the offense never really fully clicked during the game, but a lot of that could be because very early in the game, their stud wide receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba, went out and did not return. I haven't seen an update yet on what his injury is or if he's expected back, so I will let you know as soon as I officially hear or read something. So they definitely had to look elsewhere to score some points. So if this Ohio State defense holds, if they continue to do this, and let me remind you, this was a very, very good, talented, experienced Notre Dame offensive line. In the second half, they had no answer for the Ohio State front seven. None. And that has been Ohio State's Achilles heel the last few seasons. They have continued to underperform on defense, especially from a physicality standpoint along the D line. So if Jim Knowles has fixed this, and if they continue to progress and make improvement, and they're able to get Jackson Smith-Njigba back, and their offense gets to clicking, I'm telling you right now, guys, nobody is going to beat them. And I mean nobody if that happens. So right now, if they just keep at that level that they played against Notre Dame, they're going to be a tough team to beat. All right? So I absolutely think if their defense keeps at that level or keeps on slightly improving week by week, they should be the favorites to win the national title. Absolutely. That's a buy for me. Number 5, the next two, I'm gonna keep 5 and 6 for hot takes concerning our black and gold squads. Number 5, after this weekend's upcoming game in the Little Big Apple versus Kansas State, Missouri will remain the nation's best defense against the run. Missouri only allowed 11 rushing yards by Louisiana Tech on Thursday night. That is a whole hell of a lot better, almost a complete 180 than it was last season. Last season, that was Missouri's biggest issue, was rush defense. At one point, they were second to last in the nation in yards allowed on the ground per game. So after 1 week, they're first in the nation. How great is that? So that's the hot take. Will they still be number 1 in the nation after this week's game against Kansas State? I would love to say buy rather than sell, but I have to be a little bit objective here and just think that's going to be very difficult. So I'm going to hold. Braveheart, a little Braveheart like there for you. I'm going to say hold on this hot take. K-State definitely is kind of a different animal than the Bulldogs were of Louisiana Tech. K-State, they want to run the ball first, second, and third. You're going to see a ton of QB read option from former Nebraska quarterback Adrian Martinez, who is now the starter there. So they will not throw very often, will Kansas State. So hopefully Missouri keeps this up, this high level of defense against the rush. And that's really is primarily because of they're a year older, but a lot of good additions through the transfer portal have already kind of paid off for Coach Drink and those boys. So I'm going to say hold on that hot take. Okay, but I wish I could say buy, but we'll have to wait and see. And finally, my number 6 and my last hot take deals with our Iowa Hawkeyes. Boy, following their 7-3 victory and allowing only 127 total yards by the South Dakota State Jackrabbits, recording 2 safeties, 4 sacks, and not allowing a touchdown, the Iowa defense will yet again be an elite top 10 or top 5 defense in the nation. I'm going to buy this one because I already said during my season preview show for the 2022 Iowa Hawkeyes, I believe this year's defense could and will be even better than last year's defense. Now, that being said, they're not going to have 2 straight years of recording 25 interceptions. That's not going to happen. They absolutely will revert to the mean big time with that. But I just think that they're deeper, more experienced now on the defensive line up front. All 3 of their stud linebackers are back. They have an All-American in the defensive backfield in Riley Moss. I think this defense could be one of Coach Kirk Ferentz's best defenses ever in his tenure. Because I've seen this, and we've seen this Iowa defense do this. Once again, they are wasting the golden age of Iowa defense right now because of the ineptitude of the offense. I mean, for 6 straight seasons, Iowa has allowed on average less than 20 points a game. That is best in the nation during that time frame. So I definitely believe, and it's only been 1 game, but I've seen enough to say that they are going to be an elite defense once again this season after what we saw take place Saturday inside Kinnick Stadium with the defense basically winning the game with those 2 safeties outscoring the offense. So I'm absolutely going to buy that statement. Now, as far as my hot takes, buy, sell, or hold, let me know. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. Do you agree, disagree? If I've missed something or if you'd like me to add something, please, I always encourage your involvement. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next segment of today's episode. Is one of my favorite, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's right. Thank you, Blondie, for that. Appreciate it. So let's start off with the good. The good that we saw during week 1. And this is something that I mentioned during my week 1 picks episode late last week, that we need to be aware of the great talent at the quarterback position at the non-Power 5 schools and the non-Power 5 level this season. It was on full display during last week, during kickoff week. I'm going to share some of these numbers with you with some of these stud quarterbacks at this level. I'm going to start off in the American Athletic with Clayton Tune. That's Houston's quarterback. I mean, that absolutely instant classic. I believe it was a triple overtime win at UTSA. His numbers, 206 yards passing, 4 total touchdowns, 3 through the air, 1 on the ground, and 0 interceptions. Also, in the American Athletic, I mean, listen to this stat line. SMU's quarterback, Tanner Mordecai, 432 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, also with 0 interceptions. What a stat line there. Now moving on to Conference USA. I mean, picking up exactly where Bailey Zappi left off last season in his record-breaking season at Western Kentucky. I'm talking about Austin Reed, this year's Western Kentucky quarterback, through 2 games. Now that's because they did have a game in week 0. Through 2 games, he's thrown for 547 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, so not bad. Now, also out of Conference USA, Frank Harris, who is the UTSA the Roadrunners quarterback. He had a very impressive game against Houston, almost knocked those guys off. And remember, Houston is really a trendy dark horse college football playoff pick. My brother Anthony is very high on Houston. So Frank Harris, his numbers on Saturday in that game, he threw for 330 yards, 4 total touchdowns, 3 through the air, 1 on the ground with 1 interception. Switching conferences now to the Sun Belt, the Fun Belt Conference. I got to start off with Chase Bryce, the stud quarterback at Appalachian State. What a game that was. He only led his team to 40 points in the fourth quarter and almost came back and beat the state school North Carolina Tar Heels there in Boone. His final numbers for Mr. Bryce: he threw for 361 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Also from the Sun Belt Conference, my guy Grayson Mullet McCall, quarterback from Coastal Carolina. Pretty good numbers in a very, very solid victory against a game Army team that is one of the toughest teams to prepare for. They are a matchup nightmare with their triple option attack. But Grayson McCall's numbers Saturday against Army: 4 total touchdowns, 3 through the air, 1 on the ground, and also 0 interceptions. So not bad, not too bad at all. And the best of them all. And last year I was fully all aboard on the Bailey Zappi train. I wanted to get him to New York City. He should have been there as a Heisman Trophy finalist. I mean, the guy did break not 1 but 2 records last season for most passing yards and most touchdowns in a season last year, and basically no one really knew about him, but I was, the Bailey Zappi fan club member number 1, not only a member but also the president. And this year I am all on Fresno State quarterback Jake Hayner. I believe he will be the best player this season, will be and is the best player from the non-Power 5 ranks this year. Jake Hayner's numbers from Thursday night, I believe. He threw for 370 yards. He was 35 for 41 on pass attempts for 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So what a game for Jake Hayner. And that's a guy you're going to come to know a lot about if you already don't know anything about Jake Hayner. So that was week 1's the good. Now let's get to week 1's the bad. And boy, there was some bad. Now before I start this off, let me just kind of talk about the other half of the bad. Some first-year coaches at some of these blue blood programs, they did taste victory in their debuts. Brent Venables at Oklahoma got a good victory. Lincoln Riley at USC, big-time victory as well. Even some of the first-year coaches making their debuts at other blue blood programs like Marcus Freeman for Notre Dame, they lost, but they looked really good. You could absolutely tell that they were game. They got up for that game in Columbus inside the Horseshoe against Ohio State. So nothing to hang their hat, no need to hang their heads low. Okay, this Coach Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But wow, there were a few first-year coaches at these blue blood programs that did not enjoy their debuts. And also, too, before I forget him, Billy Napier, also at Florida there, getting that big upset victory over Utah on his debut. But there were some first-year coaches who had the absolute opposite experience. I'm going to start off with new Oregon head coach Dan Lanning, who was the former Georgia defensive coordinator last year during their national title run and victory. Got absolutely embarrassed by his former employer, Coach Kirby Smart in Georgia, 49-3. Not good there, Coach Lanning. Another one, former Penn State defensive coordinator, now head coach at Virginia Tech, Coach Brent Pry, on Friday night. Him and his boys traveled down to Greenville, North Carolina to take on the Old Dominion Monarchs and lost. Ouch. That is not going to sit well there in Hokie Nation. That's a fan base that's starved to get back to prominence. Hopefully because they want to get back to where Beamer Ball had them. That's what they're hoping to get back to. It never really took off under Coach Fuente there. Wow, a very rough start there for Coach Pry at Virginia Tech. But the worst had to be down on the Bayou. In New Orleans, wow, Brian Kelly at LSU. I mean, definitely not the debut he wanted with one of the most rabid fan bases in all of college football. Neutral site game in New Orleans. They lost against a very solid and good, much improved Florida State team. But really how they lost. These kicking woes, a blocked extra point, ended up being the deciding factor, but there were some other miscues in the kicking game. Just not a good debut for Coach Brian Kelly. I think he's already actually kind of in hot water, to tell you the truth. But I really like him. I think he's a good coach. I know he's not always the easiest person to deal with, as did some of the news media during his post-game presser. Kind of got a little bit of a hard time there from some of the press. He's not always the easiest cat to be around or to communicate with. He's not always the most welcoming, but the guy can coach. Just give him a few years. Trust me, he's going to bring a title back to Tiger Town. He is. Trust me. So that's the bad. I mean, definitely some games that those coaches want to forget, but in a way, they should never forget them, because then they will try and work even harder to never feel that pain and embarrassment or that way again. So best of luck to him here in week 2 coming up, fellas. Now we get to the ugly from week 1. Wow. And I actually have a potential toss-up for you. And I'm going to let you, the Black and Gold family, decide, and all of you college football fans alike, comment, let me know, formulate your own opinion for which one of these two is the ugliest of the ugly. UGLY, you ain't got no alibi. So the first one is, I've got to talk about it because I'm not a Homer Simpson, the offensive Iowa offense. And also the other one that they're squaring off against to be the ugliest thing we saw is Purdue's lack of execution with clock and game management late in their game Thursday night against Penn State. So that's the stage is set between those two. Now some numbers for the Iowa offense. I already mentioned to you in this episode, and if you want, you can get a lot more insight to that game specifically. I did do an instant reaction vlog to the Iowa-South Dakota State game. Feel free to check that out. I know you'll enjoy it. But yes, the Iowa offense could only muster 166 total yards against an FCS opponent, even though, yes, they are a good FCS team, number 3 in the nation, but that's just frigging ridiculous, all right? Of that 166 total yards, they only could get 109 yards through the air and 57 yards on the ground. Both awful totals, and I don't even know which one is worse. I would think probably rushing, because you're Iowa. You turn out offensive linemen to the pros year in and year out, and all you can get is 57 yards on the ground on those attempts, which really came down to 1.6 yards per rush. Are you kidding me? The offensive line got owned the entire afternoon against the Jackrabbits. And the other number that sticks out, which makes that offensive output even worse, is the yards per passing attempt. 4.4 yards per attempt through the air. Yikes. That is absolutely awful. I've never seen an offensive game, an output quite like this, but still to get the victory. I mean, and the one thing I'm going to say, and I've said this a few times, I've already kind of brought it up a little bit in this episode, is everybody this week is talking about the Iowa offense as they should, but I think it's really overshadowing how good the Iowa defense played and their special teams. And I'm going to get to special teams here a little bit later in this episode. Once again, feel free, like, share, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Now for Purdue looking and needing to bleed the clock late in the fourth quarter to protect their lead on their last two possessions. Late in the game, late in the fourth quarter, up by 3 points, I believe, was their lead. The last two possessions of the game that Purdue had the ball. Okay, so that they had a possession, their defense did their job, got the ball back to the offense. So their last two possessions, trying to bleed the clock, get a couple first downs, make Penn State use their timeouts, run the game by the book. This is what happened. In those two possessions, they ran 14 total plays, but of those 14 plays, they ran only one running play, one rushing attempt in 14 trying to bleed the clock. And when they did that one rushing play, imagine this, they gained almost 4 yards, and that's the one timeout that Penn State had to burn. So they still had 2 remaining, which then helped them, aided them in driving the field and scoring with under a minute to go, which would then lead to their victory. But to make matters worse, of those 14 plays, so 13 of those being passes, Purdue only completed 3 of them. So that right there, the clock just didn't move. That was absolutely dreadful. I do not know what Coach Jeff Brom was thinking. I can never disrespect the man because of how he always out-schemes us. I mean, Iowa fans never like to see Purdue on their schedule, especially lately. But I just don't know what he's thinking. You have to run the ball. You have to bleed. Excuse me. You have to bleed the clock. Don't outthink yourself. Just keep it simple. If they do that and Purdue uses those last 2 timeouts, they're going to burn roughly about a minute off the clock. Penn State gets the ball back with just about a minute to go with no timeouts, putting their offense more in the crosshairs, in the crossfire. Because at that point they can't be slow paced. They're going to be more pressed. So I don't know what he was doing. But those are the 2 ugliest of the ugly. I just couldn't really decide between either one. If it was the Iowa offense or Purdue's clock and game management issues. I'll let you decide. But for me, being an Iowa fan, I would say the offense, but I'm not really surprised by that because we knew they were going to struggle this year just as they did last season. But I think I'm actually going to choose Purdue because that win would have propelled them to what I think could have been a potential West Division championship. But now they're behind the 8 ball, already having a conference loss, especially a home game. But I'm going to go with Purdue because the flip side of it is Iowa at least got the victory. So I think Purdue's clock management and game management just slightly, by the hair of my chinny chin chin, worse than Iowa's offense just because Iowa was able to get the victory. So that was the good, the bad, and the ugly from week 1. Now, much like last year, I wanted to bring back my team power rankings. So based on what I saw, I'm going to give you my top 10 plus 2. Now, last year I would give you the AP rankings, but as of now, those don't really matter. Rankings only really matter when we start getting the playoff rankings later on in the season. So I'm going to go ahead and give you my top 10 plus 2, and I also will let you know where they are ranked in this week's updated AP poll. So starting at number 12, I have USC, who is ranked number 10 in the AP poll. Offense looked really good against Rice. The defense, I don't really know because it's Rice. I got to see more out of the men of Troy before I move them up. So they're my first team on the outside looking in. Number 11, I have Notre Dame. Notre Dame looked really good in defeat. They looked prepared. They were well coached. They came out with a lot of fire and passion, executed very well. So I still think highly of this team. They proved a lot to me. I thought they were one of the most overranked teams, overrated teams coming into the season. But I definitely am going to pump the brakes on that a little bit. So I have the Fighting Irish, number 11 in my power rankings, and they are currently number 8 in the AP poll. Coming in at number 10 in my power rankings, I have the Aggies of Texas A&M, who are ranked number 6 in the AP poll. I'm just not sold on this Aggies team yet. I mean, they played a nobody over the weekend. They have a pretty good game this weekend coming up. Appalachian State travels down to College Station to take them on. Maybe they can have that sort of magic again. Chase Bryce and those boys. Tune in to tomorrow's episode. That's definitely going to be one of my 15 game picks. But I just don't know how good they are. And I don't know if they have a quarterback or not. I mean, number 1 recruiting class in the nation, but still all freshmen. I don't know about this Texas A&M squad. I still believe them to be overrated. Just time will tell. So I have them number 10. Number 9, even though they lost, I have Utah at my number 9 in the power rankings. They currently are number 13 in the AP poll. I still think Utah is in a good position to make a run in the Pac-12 and still, get to the Pac-12 title game, win the chip, and still could potentially be a playoff participant. Number 8, kind of my surprise team out of nowhere. I've got to put the team that beat Utah. I've got the Florida Gators, and they're ranked number 12 in the AP poll. It was tough for me to put Florida this high, but it really is going to be up to them if they stay in my top 10 plus 2 or if they rise or fall. This coming week, they have another tough game. They have another ranked opponent comes to the Swamp in number 20, Kentucky. So if Florida is able to win these first 2 games against ranked opponents, that to me will really kind of show me that they're potentially here to stay. So we'll have to wait and find out what the Gators can do. Number 7 in my power rankings, number 17 in the AP poll is Pitt. I mean, what a great game that was. I mean, the backyard brawl, a 12-year, 11-year hiatus. What a way to bring it back. It came down to the last possession. What a game. And this Pitt team showed a lot of character. I don't know how they'll stack up against the ACC upper echelon, Clemson, NC State, Miami when push comes to shove. But I like what I saw out of Pitt. I think they're really good defensively and studly on both lines of scrimmage. Number 6 in my power rankings, I have the Baylor Bears, who are number 9 in the AP poll. Baylor looked really, really good. I think they actually do have a path to the playoff, but I think their room for error is very, very thin. But they have a huge test. I mean, this week, maybe, just maybe, it might be my spotlight game of the week. You'll have to watch tomorrow's episodes, my pick'em, that they travel to Provo and at Elevation and take on BYU. So what a game that is. And what a big potential, what a statement it could be for Baylor and the rest of the Big 12 if they come home victorious from Provo, Utah. Number 5, I've got the Michigan Wolverines, who are number 4 in the AP poll. wow, they looked really good. I mean, this team just looked like they did not miss a beat at all. Still playing hardball football, ground and pound, tough physicality in the trenches. Wow, but I just don't know. I mean, it was against Colorado State. So take that into account. I mean, I believe they have Hawaii this week. Woo, great. Way to challenge yourself. And then after that, they have UConn. Woo, a little Charmin soft schedule there in the non-conference for Michigan. Number 4, I have the Clemson Tigers, who are number 5 in this week's AP poll. I liked what I saw from them. I mean, this game against Georgia Tech, which took place Monday night, was close for 2.5 quarters. I thought maybe they were going to be in potentially for a dogfight, but they pulled away late. The defense is as advertised, looked really good. And quarterback DJU Uyunglele, looked much better, more comfortable, made better decisions. The offensive line woes, which really cost them last season, they look definitely a little bit better. So I like this Clemson squad, but I still want to see a little bit more from them. Number 3, I've got Alabama, who's ranked number 1 in the AP poll. They pitched a shutout against a pretty solid team, the defending Mountain West champion Utah State Aggies and quarterback Bonner. But I don't know. It's just the other two that are above them just seem to impress me more because they played a little bit of tougher competition. So Alabama, will be there when push comes to shove. Number 2, I have Ohio State, who's ranked number 3 in the AP poll. I mean, they won kind of not ugly. They didn't win convincingly, but they won uncharacteristically. And they did show a lot doing that, really relying on their run game with their best wide receiver weapon out for the majority of the game. So I really liked, and it was a top 5 opponent, all right? A team that I think is going to stick around for most of the season. So I really liked what I saw in Ohio State. And my number 1 team, I already mentioned it, after their dismantling of Oregon, I got to have the Georgia Bulldogs, who are ranked at number 2 in this week's AP poll. So that's my team power rankings entering week 2, post week 1. Tune in next week's show. We'll see how many of these teams move up, move down, maybe move completely out of the top 10 plus 2. Just stay tuned and see what happens. Now moving on to the final segment of this episode, and thank you for your time and attention, is my 3 cheers segment. So what I've done, I've picked the 3 best stories, performances, whether it be by an individual, a unit, or a team in general, and just wanted to give them a little bit of praise and thank you for everything that they did and what they accomplished. So give them a little premature. We'll come back to it here in a little bit. So my first cheer goes out to, maybe for the first time ever, I get to mention this and this team. I'm giving it to the Rutgers Scarlet Knights as a team in general. Wow, what a solid and really good non-conference win. Rutgers traveled to Boston College, which is a tough place to go and play and win there in Chestnut Hill, but they showed a lot of fortitude. They came back, come from behind victory 22-21 over Boston College, and that really could be a springboard for Coach Greg Schiano as he tries to build this program back to where they were before he left, when they were still in the Big East Conference. Really could be a culture defining, a program builder type win. It was a very impressive victory, and this roster was absolutely decimated by injuries and still found a way to win against Boston College. So cheers, hip hip hooray for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. My next cheers has to go to my guy, the punter from down under, Iowa punter Tori Taylor. I mean, just what he accomplished on Saturday's game for the Iowa Hawkeyes. I mean, he is most directly responsible for securing the victory other than maybe being the one who made the tackles for the 2 safeties in the end zone that the defense made. Because those safeties were set up directly by the leg and the efforts of Tori Taylor, pinning the ball time and time again, not just inside the 20, but also inside the 10 and inside the 5. Listen to these stats from Tori Taylor, what he did for how important he was for this Iowa team on Saturday. He had 10 punts, 2 touchbacks. So, of the 8 punts that were within the field of play, 7 of them were inside the 20, 5 of those 7 were inside the 10, and 4 of those 5 were inside the 5-yard line. I mean, that is absolutely remarkable. I mean, and as we say at Iowa, this one's for you, Zach. Punting is winning. That's how we do it. So hip hip hooray for you, Tori Taylor, the punter from down under. Now my last cheers for my 3 cheers segment goes to William and Mary, and to the Delaware, the William and Mary tribe, I believe, and the Delaware Fighting Blue Hens, 2 FCS programs that scored victories over Division I FBS opponents over the weekend. Well done, Delaware and William and Mary. I love when that happens, and I think we're going to see at least one, if not a couple, victories this weekend by FCS foes over FBS teams. So well done, William and Mary. Well done, Delaware. And for you, I give you a parting 3 cheers for you. All right. So that's it. That's today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Once again, please feel free to like, share, rate, subscribe, share, comment the hell out of it. Let me know how I'm doing. If I missed something, if you'd like me to bring up a subject area or a question to the Black and Gold family or all the college football fans out there, just let me know. Now, coming up this week on the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, look for my Week 2 preview and pick'em episode. Going to be up probably afternoon Thursday, if not early evening Thursday night. During that episode, obviously everyone's favorite segment is my pick'em segment. Also going to give you a list of some potential trap games, and also going to give you my updated Heisman Trophy candidates and standings through 1 week, who I see as the Heisman favorites as of now, which is still very, very early. And another thing that you're going to want to tune into, I have my Touchdown Black and Gold vlog debut of a new segment as well, Sound Off, to where it's 2 minutes of me just telling it like it is. And you're definitely going to want to tune in and check this out, especially for you Penn State fans, you Penn State students, Penn State alums, and friends of the program. I got some things to say, so definitely want to join me for Sound Off during that episode. But that's it. So until then, thank you for your time, your support, and everything that you have done and will continue to do for the channel. So until then, I say to you as always, peace, progress, prosperity, and thank you for joining me on this episode of the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.